Welcome to this week's episode of Forgiving the Girl Inside, a Matter of the Heart. I'm your hostess, Lisa Drennan, energetic mindset mentor, business strategist, author of the book, Forgiving the Girl Inside, Finding Balance, Freedom, and Fun in Your Life. I am so excited to be here today with the beautiful Angela Quinteros. I'm so excited I said her name correctly the first time. I'm getting better at this, guys, right? Today we have, this is a beautiful, I love this. The title of this episode is Reaching New Heights in Leadership and Life. And that's what we're all designed to do. We're all designed to soar, to seek our authentic route to our highest potential. So Angela is a she has a beautiful motto, faith over fear. She is an executive leadership coach and motivational mentor. She is a Christ-centered coach, a wife, a mom to 3 active teen boys. She definitely has her hands full. And she truly believes that where faith is, anything possible. Where faith is, anything is possible. So dream big and position yourself as a daughter in God's kingdom to receive this bountiful blessings He has reserved just for you. And we have such a similar mission because I'm always talking about you have these beautiful gifts and talents that you need to unwrap that God has given to you to fulfill your passion, your mission, your purpose. And once you can connect your mind and your heart, you captivate your thoughts and make them obedient to Christ, you soar. So thank you so much, Angela, for being here, for sharing this platform. Tell me, what was life like before you? I mean, did you always have this faith over fear stance, or was it always like more fear over faith?
That's a great question. I think over the course of my life, it's sort of ebbed and flowed into both of those areas. I was raised in a Christian home, so I have that background of just even from young childhood of that knowledge that God is always there with me. But there's definitely been periods of my life where I was in a more reactive stage and not so much responding to or even allowing myself to tap into God and His direction for my life. It was kind of more like I had taken the reins. I felt like I was in control, um, and I definitely was not looking to God for guidance. And so for me, the faith over fear motto has really solidified in this current chapter of my life. I recently left an 18-year career in education. And
Wow.
for the last 5 years of that career, I was an elementary school principal, and just really struggling with like that calling, because I guess I'd never really had felt called to that position. When I first started in education, I was in a period of life where I was in control of the reins and I felt like I was making all the decisions and not really tapping into God as much as I probably should have back then 18 years ago. Um, and so I never really quite felt at home in that career, but I didn't really know what else to do because I was there and I was making money and I was doing my thing. And every day would just repeat, and then you just go, and next thing you know, like 18 years of life has gone by. Your kids are growing up, one of them's about to leave the house, and I'm thinking, this cannot be it. Like, I am burnt out. My school, my students at my school, my staff, they were getting all of my time and energy. I was coming home and I was just depleted, and I just had nothing left to give to the ones who needed it and deserved it the most from me. And so I hit that point where they were even starting to voice that to me, and I knew something had to change. And so thankfully, I have mentors in my life that reminded me who really drives my life and who I should be going back to, which is our Heavenly Father. And so I just started a simple practice of, I had a daily devotional that had collected some dust, and I pulled it back off the shelf and really just started spending intentional time with the Lord every morning. It wasn't a lot. I was still a busy principal, still a busy mom. And my days would start with checking email at 6 a.m. So I switched that, did at least 10 minutes a day, did the assigned daily devotional. For me, the less thinking I had to put into it, the more likely I was to continue to do it every morning. So I just picked a daily devotional. I opened it up to that day. I would read what was there. I'd spend some time allowing the message to sort of sink in. I'd pray, and then I'd jump right back into checking emails and go through the rest of my day. So maybe not ideal, but it was a start. And it was that, and God took that crack that I opened in that door, and he really just like wedged himself in there and didn't allow me to close it again, which was such a blessing, because I started to feel different. I started to act different. And so that's really when the faith over fear solidified itself for me, because as I was spending this time with God in that, what became my last year in education, which I didn't know at the time, but it became my last year in education, he was guiding me out. He was leading me out and just putting people in my life, putting ideas in my life or in my mind that I had never even knew existed or thought of. And it was scary. There was a lot of fear there. But I was so desperate for change and to get out of the rut that I was in, that I was open to anything, no matter how scary it would be. And that morning practice time with God really was that piece that just helped me have comfort in that he has my back, and he won't steer me in something that's going to, ruin our family or make us lose our house or whatever the case may be, because all those thoughts were going through my head. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know I'm still in my career. I have 2.5 years to go before I retire. And it's like the last 2.5 years, it's like, oh, really? Can I just not go? I just got a text message that they're offering an early out. I'm like, oh, do I qualify? Can I take an early out? Do I have to really plug in 2.5 more years? So to
Right.
follow that passion, that calling, that must have been very fearful. But to be able to take that plunge, just realize this isn't working. You felt that disconnect in your heart and you returned to prayer. So I love that, how you meditated on God's word. You didn't turn to the world looking for all the world suggestions, but just focused on God's word and said, okay, Lord. And he kept poking you, he kept tapping you. And I think a lot of times we miss God's taps because we're so busy trying to figure it out in our own head. We can't see the bigger picture. And I love how God reveals himself through nature, in all of creation, all throughout the word. There's systems, there's methodologies in place where God has an order of things.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything was done out of order, it's not going to work. And he reveals himself that way. And then there's that special revelation through the word, by reading scripture. So you kind of connected those pieces and started this beautiful journey of like, yeah, these are my priorities. I know there's something wrong with myself, and I know I'm burnt out, but what can I do differently?
Yeah.
Because I imagine you were holding on to that money, you were holding on to that, authority, that power that you had, and people were depending on you at work. I mean, you were the principal, you had this, you were running the show.
Yeah.
So to say, bye, what did that feel like? Can you explain it in more detail and just kind of get our audience in that visual place where you were like at, because there's a lot of them out there right now that are at that point. They're doing their 9 to 5. They hate it. They want to start their own entrepreneur. They want to do their own coaching, their courses, whatever it is they want to create.
Yeah.
And they just need that encouragement, that push.
Sure. So I guess for me, to try to paint this visual picture for our audience, I can go back to just sort of like the different signs that God kept putting in front for me and sort of how it all evolved, because it actually evolved fairly rapidly when you consider an 18-year career. And the part that I haven't shared yet with our audience is everything you said is absolutely true. Like the fear, because I felt it was in the middle of the pandemic, right? I had taken this team that had, in 5 years, we had gone through scandal. We had gone through the loss of one of our students. We had gone through several personal losses of very close family members with staff. We had gone through, I was their only stable administrator over a 10-year period. So for us to have developed this super strong bond, they looked to me as more than just their leader. They looked to me as like, this is going to sound horrible because I am not a savior, but from their minds, it was that sense of like, this is the person that took us out of this dark place and got us to this place of collaboration and community and family. And so all of that was like, yeah, I felt like I was deserting them. And I kept thinking like, God, are you sure? Like now, now, like, I'm going to be the deserter. Like, I'm going to be that one who looks like they're waving the white flag and says, and that was something that I pushed back on him about. I was like, right in the middle of the pandemic, really? Like, we just
This
barely
was
got
for
students back on
you.
campus and you're telling me now's the time to go?
You want me to do what?
You want me to do what? Yeah, I was like, they'll never forgive me, you know? And then the
Mm,
part that I hadn't shared yet was that also at home, I'm the primary caregiver. So that
mm,
income of that administrative level, you know, 6-figure income at that point in my career, we had no idea where that was going to come from. And so to paint the picture a little bit, God, and I, as a coach, and I don't know how many of your audience members are in the coaching world or are familiar with it, but you know, there's that concept of market research where you put yourself out there, your idea out there, you talk to people that fit your who you would like to be future clients, and then you just kind of like validate your offer and your program. And so my mom shared with me a former hospital administrator's post who is now entrepreneur coach for like business coach to get coaches to the point where it can become their business. Shared it
mm.
with me, and it was all about getting off the hamster wheel, getting out of corporate, being there for your family, putting them first. And she was just like, Angela, you should do this interview. Like, I remember working for her. She's a phenomenal lady. She's super smart. And she was offering $50 to talk to you, to do the interview for an hour. So I was like, what do I have to lose? You know, it's an hour of my time. I get $50, worst case scenario. And, you know, this person had been validated by my mom, who I obviously trust and respect. So I answered that. I signed up for one of her market research interviews. And in that call, that was where God first planted that seed of like, you can be a coach. You can do what you love to do. Because as a principal, I was coaching people all day, every day. That was a huge part of my job. Um, and that was my passion. Like my passion, and what I was always getting positive feedback on is how I was helping them become better versions of themselves, but not in a demeaning way or I got you kind of a way. It was more of truly that coaching style. And so when God put this, when in that market research interview, when she asked me if you could do anything besides what you're doing now, what would it be? Life coach was one of the first things that came to my mind. And that had never even, I didn't even really know what that all entailed. I thought, oh, you have to be certified. Oh, you have to do this. And so we talked through it, and she was like, you can do that. You have a solid area of expertise. You have experience. Like there are areas where you could do this and coach other people. And it was just that little tiny seed that got planted. And then one of my other mentors that I worked with, we had like an icebreaker activity where we talk about, what are you reading right now? And she mentioned this book called The Next Right Thing. I think it's by Emily Freeman, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a Christian book. I was working in a secular public school, but this person knew that I was also a person of faith. And so she felt comfortable sharing that. And I looked into it, and it's all about hearing God's voice. And when you find yourself at a crossroads, whether a small one, a small fork in the road, or a giant, like, I don't know what to do next, I'm frozen and stuck kind of period. It was like devotional style. So I added that into my morning devotional time, and it really helped me learn how to sit with God and like listen to him and allow him to show me what he wants in my life for me in my life. So that was October that I did that interview. December, we're blessed enough in my district to have 3 weeks off for winter break. And as I explained earlier, I was done. Like I was so fried, I couldn't even form coherent sentences half the time. So I had already kind of made this commitment of like, I'm completely unplugging. I'm putting a vacation on my email so that everybody knows I'm not answering emails. I'm not accessible. I'm taking this full time off. And so I continued working through that book. I really just spent some super quality time with God. You mentioned nature and how he just reveals himself. I totally agree. Even though it was cold, I was spending a lot of my time just bundled up outside in my back patio, just sort of getting that fresh air. And I feel like being outdoors just makes me feel a little bit closer to God. Like somehow in my own house, I'm like one
Mm.
step further than I could be if I was right outside those doors.
Yeah.
So I was there, and he just kept prompting me to reach back out to that coach who I'd done the market interview with, and just like get more information, see what her program's about, see if this is something that you can really do. And the money security part was a big thing. And so I called her in early January, and I just straight up asked, is it possible to replace this salary by July when I'm not getting paychecks anymore if I do leave corporate? And she, mind you, is like super business minded, very successful. She herself is at probably pretty close to the 7-figure mark right now. And her program is that high ticket program, and she puts you on an accelerated rate. And so, yeah, confidently, she was like, if you can do X, Y, and Z, then
Mhm.
yes. If you're not able to do that because you have a family and you're working, et cetera, then it may take a little bit longer. And, but look at your savings, talk to your husband. It wouldn't take much, because once you're out and you can dedicate time and, really just jump up quickly. So that helped reassure me, talk to my husband. I just said, I really feel like I'm supposed to do this. And so like 2 weeks later, I called her and confirmed, and I made my payment, and I signed up in her program to learn how to become a coach. And that was scary, but I just
Mm.
knew that God was saying, this is something you can do. This is something I want for you. There are women out there that need your level of support. I want you out of this corporate so that you can reach the ones who are still there, who are in the same position that you are now. But I could just like, it was like he was giving me a little glimpse of the future. He's saying like, this is where I'm going to take you. And by the time you're ready, you'll have so many more experience, so much more experience, so much more relatability, and just the words and the experience necessary to be able to meet her where she is and service her and get her through that um, difficult time where she's burnt out and exhausted and doesn't know what to do, and may or may not be able to leave corporate. Because even though I found my calling and my peace by leaving, I know that that's not meant for everybody. And
Right.
and God is telling me, like, you will serve the women that I'm calling to stay in corporate or stay in that leadership level and still be a mom and still volunteer at school or at church or whatever. And he's like, you will have the tools, and I will work with you to service them so that they don't burn out. They don't, have a mental breakdown. They don't
Exactly. Yeah.
stray
It's
too
so
far away
important.
from him. So just having that opportunity to really sit deep with him, those 3 weeks off, that was where it kind of all clicked. And once it clicked, I held on to it for dear life and was just like, okay, God, I am going to 100% trust you. I thought about the times in my life where I had to have that same faith. This is a totally different story for a totally different time, but marrying my husband was one of those moments. He's from
Mhm.
Guatemala. He didn't know any English when I met him. My family had no idea, they had never even met him. And here I am calling them from Guatemala saying, this is the man I'm going to marry. We're engaged. And yeah, so that's a quick little glimpse of like a moment where I just 100% knew what God had in play for my life, and that was the right thing to
Mm.
do. And this was another example of that. I knew
Yeah.
he was telling me to leave. So even against the advice of my business coach, because she's very security driven. So that finance side of like, you're not making the money yet. We have to get to the point where you're making some money. You've got yourself out there. Um, so even against her advice, in February, I submitted my letter of resignation. I just knew.
Wow.
I knew I wasn't going back. I knew that was not what God had in store for me. And so I just had to act. I had to act in that faith over the fear and just make it. I think part of it for me was like not giving myself a safety net so that I would fully 100% be entrusting in God and his plan for me. Because I think had I not resigned right away, that safety net would be there, and that the concept of those paychecks would be there, and I might not have left it so easily. So I knew I needed to act in that moment. So I submitted my letter of resignation, but as I've alluded, was so afraid of deserting my team and my staff. So I finished the rest of the school year. So I really wasn't done until June. And that also gave me an opportunity to be a part of finding my replacement, to really have a chance to explain and talk to and connect with the people that I'd built these bonds with. And they were so happy for me. Like they just saw when I was talking about what my plans were, even though I didn't know exactly what kind of coach I was going to be at that point in time. When I was explaining it and just thinking, this is what it might look like, they could see the radiation, the joy on my face. They could see like how much peace I had with that. And they were happy for me. And they're my biggest cheerleaders. And even now, like they check in and be like, how's it going? How's the coaching business? We're so excited for you. We love watching your stuff that you put on Facebook. Keep doing more on your public profile, because they're not in my private group. They're like, do more. So it's just been really neat to see where God has led me. But absolutely, like there were very fearful moments. And
Yeah.
ultimately it was that action. It was the not delaying and just doing it.
Just trusting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Proverbs 3, 5, 6, trust in the Lord, and
Yeah.
don't try to figure it out. And that's what's really important is, getting out of your own way and just connecting your heart with your mind and saying, okay, Lord, is this really what you want me to do? Like I'm always talking to God saying, really, you want me to do what? I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. Is this really from you? Let's test it.
Yeah.
Like Gideon, let's test it and make sure it's really from you.
Yeah.
So what kind of coach are you? What do you specifically do? I know you're a mindset coach and you work, but what's your program?
Right. So the title that we landed on and announced at the beginning, the executive leadership coach and the motivational mentor, I kept the mentor part on because really my program is serving the Christian woman who is in a current leadership position. And she is in that place of overwhelm and just exhaustion because she is doing all the things for all the people and trying to be all the things for those people as well and do it 100%. And as we all know, you can't give 100% in 10 different areas.
Exactly.
But we try, right? As women, we absolutely try and think that we can. We think we've got our calendar laid out and we've got our constant list running through our mind so that we don't let anything slip and drop any of those plates that are spinning. But ultimately, through my program and the coaching, I'm serving that woman to help her bring her, first of all, back to God, because I think that's usually the biggest piece that has allowed her to get to the point of overwhelm and just sheer exhaustion is because she's relying on herself. So get out of that self-reliance mode and go back to God reliance and get her Godfidence back and get, and just kind of establish that routine of daily time with him. And another one of my, I guess, mottos or things that I say frequently is like, time with God is never time wasted. And so big piece of my program is really just letting that sink in and committing to it long enough that you can see it be true in your life. Because God is the he is the all powerful. He literally can manipulate time to work in our favor. And we would never know it was happening. It's not like we see ourselves freeze and the world goes in slow motion, but God has that ability. He can be doing that for us. And so when we devote our time to him and allow him to have control of even our schedule, right? He says he wants to be a part of all of our life, every part of our day. He wants us to go to him with the little things and the big things. And so the more that I've done that, the more that I've seen it true. I've seen it verified, or like you said, test it, right? You kind of put tests out there and then you see them like, oh, okay. You pulled that one off. Okay. I'm learning to trust.
It's so funny. Yeah, it's so funny because I didn't trust God for years and I didn't really know. You don't know what you don't know, but I had such lies in my head and such conditioning from religion that I didn't have a relationship with the Lord. And even though I was saved in July of 79, I was 12 years old. I didn't truly know what that meant. And as I grew and I matured, I kept seeking. And being an avid reader, I took courses. I was, like in the, back then, before the internet was really popular, we did mail-in. So I connected with different theology groups where I would sign up for these courses that were advertised in the newspaper, and I would send away for it, and they would send me paper. I would take the quiz, read all the material, send it back, and get a certificate. So I've always been like an avid reader, and I love to learn. So as I kept growing and understanding what the word means, and like scripture, how does it apply to my life? He just kept opening doors. And I remember when I connected with my mentor the first time in 2014, the first question they asked me was, well, what do you want? What do you mean, what do I want? No one's ever asked me what I wanted, and talk about spinning all those plates. I like to say I had 21, now I have 7, and they're very well spinning. So much balance compared to when I was a younger mom versus now I'm an empty nester. But it's just amazing when you ask and when you seek, God does reveal himself, and he does show up in the details, and he's always there to protect you. And it's just incredible. And I have so many stories. I could talk for hours about this,
Yeah.
but for the sake of the podcast, I'll make it a Forgiving Friday special. I just have a great tap on the shoulder about sharing a beautiful story about God being in the details. So do you have links to your coaching program? We'll put that in. Right now, people are watching it live on Facebook, but this is going to be uploaded to the podcast and to YouTube, so you can watch it on your favorite podcast host in a few weeks. So stay tuned for that. In the description will be the links to connect with Angela. We'll put them on the Facebook page. Lisa Drennan is the Facebook page, and you can grab your links to connect with Angela if you'd like to work for you. If you are an executive, you're in a leadership role in in corporate America, wherever you are working. You can connect with Angela, see if she's a good fit for you to help you get rid of that overwhelmed. As she said, hop off that hamster wheel and really know what your calling is, what your passion is. Maybe it's a different leadership role in what you're doing. Maybe it's a different company. Maybe it's something else. So as a certified Ula life coach, we talk about being balanced. And one of the things is your field and career. And you need to show up as your best self and do your work, and I like to refer to Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work it as with doing for the Lord, not for men, showing up, but then realizing you don't have to stay in that 9 to 5. You can get a different 9 to 5. There's other leadership roles. Or if you're like Angela, you can walk away from that and do your own business, be your own boss. So remember, it's a daily healing journey. It's all a matter of the heart. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me.